The phone call woke me up at 1 in the morning. I sat up in bed, rubbed my face with my palms, turned on the bedside lamp, and stared at the phone. I sighed deeply, already knowing what was coming. The caller was relentless and wouldn't stop until I picked up. I threw off the blanket, slipped my feet into slippers, and paced to the window and back, glancing at the phone. It rang at equal intervals, showing no signs of stopping. "I should just unplug the damn thing," I muttered, heading to the kitchen to look for cigarettes. I rummaged around the table for matches, lit a cigarette, and stared out the window as the phone continued to ring incessantly. "Persistent bastard!" I muttered with a bitter smirk. The calls were really starting to get on my nerves. I should have unplugged the phone before going to bed. This guy always called late at night or early in the morning. Of course, I could disconnect it, but where was the guarantee he'd leave me alone? What if he started ringing the doorbell instead, or worse, came up with some other elaborate way to make my life unbearable? At least the phone was predictable. I returned to the room, sighed again, and finally picked up the receiver. "Did I wake you?" a male voice asked mockingly. I didn't plan to respond. I just listened to this idiot without saying a word. "Sorry if I called at a bad time," he continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I turned my attention to a photograph on the wall, trying to distract myself from his words. He wasn't particularly talkative anyway, not tonight either. He chuckled darkly and spat out the same hateful line that always surprised me. "You've got 2 weeks left. You hear me, bitch?" I closed my eyes, pinched the bridge of my nose, and waited for him to say more. 2 weeks, he repeated before hanging up. I lit another cigarette and stared at the floor, shivering slightly, resigned to the fact that sleep was now impossible. Another long, lonely night stretched ahead of me. "You son of a bitch," I muttered, glaring at the phone, though deep down I felt no real hatred for my tormentor. No, I was almost glad someone in this city still waited for him and counted the days. I stubbed out the cigarette, walked to the wall, and touched the face in the photograph with trembling fingers. "I love you," I whispered pitifully. "Who the hell cares?" I repeated more softly, then burst into tears. What else can I do? I slid down to the floor, stretched out my legs, and pressed my palms against my temples. Lately, this had become a nightly ritual. Sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, desperately searching for answers. What had happened 5 years ago? And tonight, after going through all this, I found myself asking the same question again, staring at the photograph. How could you believe I betrayed you? The face in the photo seemed to smirk back at me. Fine. In 2 weeks, I'll have my answer. Whoever this guy was, he was right. 2 weeks remained. The calls had started a year ago, on June 20. For years, June 20 had been the worst day of my life, and I never expected anything good from it. Then, late one night, the first call came. That was when I heard my nighttime tormentor's voice for the first time. "He'll be back in a year," he sneered. "You've got a year left, bitch. Hear me." After that, he began calling every second day of the month, counting down the months. Then the calls became more frequent, started counting weeks. I counted them too. Years, months, weeks, days they blurred together, endless and grey, devoid of hope. "You shouldn't have believed it," I whispered into the void. "You shouldn't have? Who? What? Oh, God!" I went to the kitchen, grabbed the brandy from the cabinet, poured myself half a glass, and downed it in one gulp. I stood there, staring into the darkness outside the window. I just had to survive these 2 weeks. 2 weeks it was nothing really. 14 days and nights, that's all. I gripped the windowsill tightly and gritted my teeth, suppressing a scream. At first, such moments terrified me. I seriously thought I was losing my mind. Now, they felt routine. My fingers loosened their grip. I took a sharp breath and opened my eyes. 2 weeks, it's nothing, I repeated to myself with a sardonic grin. The phone rang again. I flinched, paused, and listened. Had he changed the rules of the game? Maybe. Why not? I walked into the room and picked up the receiver. I'm listening. Your light's on, Sasha said. Again? Again, I replied. I wish I could strangle this bastard. Does Ilya have so many friends? What kind of friend is he? He's waiting for him, I sighed. Then he's a friend. Do you know many people who wait for someone like that? Calm down, Sasha pleaded. Please, everything will be fine. In 2 weeks he'll come back, and everything will be great. I swear. Sure, I agreed, swallowing tears. Sure, everything will be just wonderful. I slammed the phone down, grabbed a pillow, and buried my face in it. The key turned in the lock, the door slammed, and hurried footsteps approached. I lifted my head and saw Sasha. He walked in, gave me a reproachful look, and headed to the kitchen. I heard him opening and closing cabinet doors, then throwing a glass into the sink before returning to the room. The dim light from the bedside lamp cast shadows across his face, making him look somber, almost tragic. Well, he started sharply, clearly intending to scold me. Instead, he sighed, sat down beside me and took my hand. He kissed it gently and pressed it to his cheek. Insomnia and brandy again, he muttered grimly. Same old story. I pulled my hand free and stared at the ceiling. Objects cast strange shadows in the faint glow of the nightlight, and I was grateful Sasha was here with me. Is brandy your new normal? He grumbled. You think I drink too much? I smirked. No, you're not drinking, you're digging your own grave. You don't sleep, you drink, you smoke until you're numb, and you stare at the ceiling. Strange, isn't it? I asked sarcastically. Any other woman in my shoes would be having the time of her life and sleeping soundly like a baby. The worst is behind us, he said after a pause. You've got 2 weeks left. Surely you can hold on without brandy or nighttime breakdowns. But what changes in 2 weeks? I asked plaintively. Sasha shrugged. He'll be back. And then what? I pressed my hand to my mouth, afraid I'd lose control again. Sasha stared at me for a long time, so long that I eventually calmed down. I covered my eyes from the light and stared into the void before murmuring, "Okay, forgive me. You've got enough worries of your own. I'm acting like an idiot. Forgive me." "What worries do I have?" He chuckled, stretching out beside me. He pulled me close, resting my head on his shoulder, and stroked my hair. "Remember when I had the measles?" I asked suddenly. "What grade were you in?" "Kindergarten preparatory group." "Why?" "No reason. Just thinking about how long ago that was. I was getting better and Mom went back to work. You complained about a headache, so your parents kept you home just in case. We played bandits, jumped from the wardrobe onto the couch, learned the dog waltz on the piano, and had the time of our lives. By lunchtime, I suddenly spiked a fever, struggling to breathe and shaking with chills.